So good afternoon, folks, and welcome to this UCCX V12.x Sunset Learning Tech Talk webinar. My name is Bruce Wilkinson, and I'm going to be running through our content with you this afternoon. But there is also access membership for 365 days, 1 year, on our on-demand online learning platform. It contains recordings of several of the courses, including all the past Tech Talk webinars like this one. There are even webinars on that recording or on that library that aren't available to the public. You also have access to Sunset Learning instructors through discussion boards, able to ask technical questions, and it is becoming a very popular self-paced learning option. For those of you who are interested, there is a promotion running right now. If you use that code NEXT1K, I think you'll get $1,000 off next year's prescription. So well worth checking that out if you're looking for, a self-paced learning option. Today, we're going to go through essentially, what's new in version 12.x. Now, there is a lot of stuff that in 12.x that is new. Ironically, perhaps, to the scripter, to the administration or configurator, and to the user, in fact, you don't really see a lot of those changes. A lot of those changes are perhaps under the hood, as it were. But there are at least two of them that I want to concentrate on this afternoon, because they have real relevance in the day-to-day administration of the platform. And so therefore we'll do a somewhat deeper dive into what's called calendar management. And we'll look at the enhanced supervisor capabilities that come with V12. So that's our agenda for our afternoon together. If you have questions, I'm going to ask that you pop them in the chat. I'll try as best I can to keep an eye on that and respond in a timely fashion. Sometimes if I'm on a bit of a roll and I'm concentrating on, what I'm doing, that doesn't always happen, but I'll do my best to respond as quickly as possible. So what is new in 12.x, up to, I think, 12.5, 12.6? Well, as we've said, calendar management and advanced supervisor capabilities, which are the two we're going to concentrate on in this webinar. There are some new historical reports. There is a bubble chat calendar, which is UCCX speak to say that, simply to say that the calendar management is made available via the web chat, as well as we'll see both the administration and supervisor capabilities as well. They're migrating the VOS to CentOS based systems. There is some additional SHA-256 support, both for single sign-on and Cisco identity service. So, Manuel, you've got what notes there you're talking about? Just out of curiosity. Anyway, so let me go on. So, a few of these sort of what's new issues. I will talk a little bit about smart licensing. Smart licensing and this thing called an overage allowance is also something that's relatively new and just worthwhile being across given that, in previous versions, potentially, you may be more used to just the traditional approach. There are some changes in terms of the agent's ability to select the device they're logging in on. You'll be aware that in the past, the agent was only able to log in on that device or telephone that was assigned to them. V12.5 gives us some additional capabilities for the agent to be more flexible in that area. Auto answer is supported, and there are some settings at the team level to allow us is busy on a non-ACD line. In other words, the scenario being that I have two lines. One is my ACD line. I dial home on my non-ACD line, and we have now the capability to change the state to not ready when I'm busy on essentially a non-ACD type environment. By the way, these bullet points really are all covered in the UCCX release notes for 12.5 SU1. There are some changes to the networks with respect to VPN access to the Finesse desktop. So some certificate work has gone on. There is support for Open Web Start in Script Editor, and some differences in the IMAP support as well. But essentially, these are transparent to the user, I guess, and largely sort of under the hood deployment type issues. Keep an eye out, just by the way, this is a blatant ad, but keep an eye out for additional webinars where we will go through more of these more engineering related features. The rationale being they're not really, I guess, classroom, it's not really classroom training material. I tend to call them sort of boutique features, but they do really lend themselves to these quick webinars. So if you can spare an hour, come and learn a lot more about certificates and Web Start and things of that nature. So as we go through our calendar, no pun intended, for webinars, we'll start to add more and more of these services. Darnell is asking, would we have option to get a copy of this webinar? It is being recorded, and I think as a result of that earlier Next on-demand membership, those recordings are, as well as others, are clearly available. But I have to say, to be honest, full disclosure, that's a little bit above my pay grade. So if you talk to your Sunset Learning sales guy or consultant, they'll be able to fill you in more detail about those sorts of things, or contact the office for that sort of level of information. Thanks for the question. As I mentioned, I do want to do just a little dogleg, I suppose, with respect to this so-called smart licensing, which requires that you create an access to a smart account on cisco.com, which provides you with the ability, or the process, if you will, for regular updates of your configuration to be compared against that license. So the three steps essentially are first to create the smart account within Cisco, to configure your product then for smart licensing, and then check the status, and this will happen sort of regularly, of the licensing at software.cisco.com. You'll find that when you go into these sorts of license, or this sort of licensing, smart licensing, there are some terms that come about. Peak usage is the peak usage of the last 15 minutes, which is going to be shared with that licensing management. Locked usage is defined as the highest license consumption value above and beyond what you are entitled to. And it's comes into play, if you like, when the system is in what's referred to as an out of compliance state. Speaking of an out of compliance state, there is a compliance flag that keeps track of whether the system is in or out of compliance. We're talking here about, ports or agent counts or things of that nature. When the compliance flag is set to 0, it represents in compliance. When it's set to 1 with red boxes, represents an out of compliance state. When you're in an out of compliance state, as we say, the system sends a locked usage value rather than a peak usage value. The compliance flag gets set to 1 and they start to count then how long you are going to remain in that out of compliance state before the system goes into an enforcement mode. It turns out that you can be in an out of compliance state for a maximum of 90 days, which seemed to me to be, relatively generous anyway, without impacting any functionality. So you've got the opportunity, if that count is something that you're going to pursue or persist in, to purchase additional sort of license capacity without sort of impacting the system functionality at all. Now, I'm not sure how easy this is to read, but let me sort of go through it with you anyway. We're talking about, say, a couple of scenarios here where on a regular basis, say every 15 minutes, the system is sending its license usage to the license management software in Cisco, and Cisco will either return, having compared it with the license parameters, an in compliance or out of compliance state. Let's say between 12:31 to 12:24, you are in compliance, so you get back the flag saying you're in compliance. However, between 12:46 and 1 p.m, your peak premium agents exceeded the 95 to 110, so you get back an out of compliance state. There is no reduction in functionality at this point. Between 1 and 1:15, you're still out of compliance. You've gone up to 120 agents. You get another out of compliance message, but you've still not got any reduction in functionality. Now, either because you know about it or because you are managing this at between 1:16 and 1:30, you're back to an in compliance state with your agents. So there was a little bit of a peak here. Now, essentially, the flags all get reset, okay? And you're good to go again for what I think becomes four consecutive out of compliance flags before you go into a process which says that it's an enforcement. And that's what's happening here in scenario 2. It's the same sort of thing, except that you've gone from your number of agents to an out of compliance state on 1, 2, 3, 4 out of compliance states, which are all defined as being reversible. In other words, if I come back into compliance before the next, update, then I won't go into that enforcement state. Whereas if I'm still out of compliance after the 4th approach, I'll go into an irreversible out of compliance, and I'll go into enforcement mode. Now, I have to say that I'm not 100% sure what that enforcement mode entails, to be perfectly honest, but it can't be good. Okay, question here about 14.x coming, what to expect to be different. I'm sorry, I don't know that. I haven't been privy to too much about what's going to be provided in 14 when it comes along. So it's said to be a fairly significant update, rather than a point update. So keep tuned, I guess. I'm not even sure when that's to be released, to be honest. We haven't sort of been advised of that. But anyway, in terms of this deeper dive in 12.x right now, we're looking at both calendar management and our supervisor capabilities. I want to continue on with that. We probably, at this point, won't go into CUIC too far, just to realise that there are some additional reports, but that's potentially, a webinar all on its own. So in calendar management, we have the ability to create calendars, associate those calendars with the chat widget. That's that bubble that we talked about before. And really mapping across to the supervisor advanced capabilities is that we can assign these calendars to supervisors, allowing them to provide that sort of calendar management. So with that, I think the best thing to do is to provide some live demos, both on calendar management and our supervisor capabilities. So that's what I'm about to do. So let me quickly. Okay, so we're looking here at 12.5 UCCX. Let me commence this demo by just logging in. I have several supervisors and administrators previously set. To begin with our calendar management, we'll go to Applications, Calendar Management, which is where we then get to create our so-called calendars. Now, what are the calendars for? Well, they are, they provide us with the ability to manage business hours, holidays, and, other special days, if you will. The difference between a holiday and a special day is really just how you configure it, to be perfectly honest. Is that the only way? Well, clearly no. In the past, we've been able to use a DB table and access that data from our script via a subroutine or directly in the parent. We've been able to use XML documents and access a calendar or a list of holiday dates in an XML document and react accordingly, depending on whether date today matches entries in either that database table or our XML document. The other approach also is the step, the set step in UCCX, where I can compare, if you will, a number of dates to today's date and exit an appropriate exit point if I see a particular match. Those three approaches, while pretty solid and work quite well, require a significant supervisory management. And by that I mean, you would clearly have to continue to update them each year, both for holidays, because sometimes the dates change, and things of that nature, and it's a little bit cumbersome. In my humble opinion, calendar management solves those problems, still gives us quite close to that functionality and makes it much easier to manage on the fly. So how do we create our calendar management? Well, we click Add New. Now, when you click Add New, you get then to be able to fill in the screens as I have filled them in here for, say, a sales calendar and a support calendar as an example. And you find you get a number of screens. Firstly, your first screen is where you can define business hours. And these little, radio buttons are just convenience buttons, to be honest. I can check, business days 24/7 is a business day if I'm always open, and some contact centres are. I can have fixed hours through the entire week, or as I've confined here, I can have flexible hours. Notice that we don't just need to say, for instance, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just have an opening and a closing date. I can also add 2 or time range 2 or time range 3, which, if you think about it, might allow us to put a lunch break in there and maybe some other breaks. And the clue to that is that hours that are not in the time range or ranges are considered to be out of business hours. So what I would do here is to say create Monday from 9 till 12, and then time range 2 might be from 1 till 5. So 12 till 1 is not in either of those time ranges, so that would be regarded as out of business hours. Now I can make different time ranges for different days depending on how I'm organising my week. I can include or not include weekends as well. If I click next, I have the opportunity now to create a scheduled special day. If I create a special day, and it's going to be potentially a day that exists in my business hours day, if this time range here, this time range will be the time range that takes effect and overrides that initial screen of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, etc. Again, even for the special day, I can organise my time ranges. The date is selected, from the drop-down box here. The third and final of these screens is the ability to create holidays. You can put in a maximum of 40 holidays, just selecting the date. And this holiday is, all day. Okay, so there's no time range associated with the holiday. Whereas if we go back to say the scheduled day, I could have a half-day holiday. Okay, now why wouldn't I, let's say Wednesday we only work half a day. Could I put that here? Well, yes, you could, but that would imply every Wednesday. Okay, whereas if I only wanted, say, Wednesday, the fourth Wednesday of the month or something of that nature, then I would define that as a special day. So that's where our calendar management gets built. Then to implement our calendar management, we'll go to our script editor, UCCX script editor, and you'll find that we have, let me just open up a test script that I've created for this demo. Page 3. So calendar test, if I open this up, you'll see this essentially is a non-functional script, in the sense that I'm not delivering anything to an agent or even a phone. What I'm simply wanting to do is to show you how the calendars will work and leave it to your imagination, if you will, to say I could embed these steps in any production script at all, and they would provide exactly that service. The way in which this is created in our scripting environment is first to add what's referred to as a calendar variable. That's a specific variable only used for calendars. You'll give it a name, and I've created 2 calendar scripts or calendar variables for our purposes, one being sales, the other being support, which seems to make sense. And the thing about this variable is that you cannot grey out, or you cannot get rid of the fact that this is a parameter. Okay, so it must be and will always be a parameter. You can just give it any name, complying with the sort of camel case, variable context anyway. So what I've done here is to create two such variables, one sales and one support. Now, it's important to note that these are, or these have parameter attributes. And the reason for that is, if we go back to our configuration, you'll see that both the sales and the support calendars are associated with a couple of IVR applications, App 00 and Test AA. If we look at, for instance, those applications, I think let's take a look at Test AA. I believe is the one I'm using. No, wrong one. App 00. Again, here is a simple application. It's calling up just that calendar test .aef script. If we had embedded that same logic in any of our other scripts, then we would assign the application to or the script to that application that's driving that production script. So that's that relationship. Now, the thing is, the reason that those parameters are set as parameters, because here at this level, associated with this application, you get to be able to assign those sales or values to those sales or support variables. Okay, they're null by default, but if I simply just check the boxes, then from the drop-down box I can assign then those calendars to this application. So that's where then if we go back to calendar management, you see that we've got those applications associated with this calendar. Let me just take a quick look at each of these. If I look at sales, for instance, sales being sales, you have no special days, and we have no holidays for sales. But if I look here at my support calendar, sales never takes a break, but, oops, I beg your pardon, support sometimes has some time off. And I have set today, the 16th of November, as a holiday. So let's just sort of see how that works. Let's go back to my application management. Look again at app 00. And just note that I've got 3001 and 3004 as triggers, which will call up this application and therefore this calendar test. If I look at my script, then I'm just simply doing a 3001. Is this the number that was dialed? If so, we'll call that the calendar, the sales calendar, if not the support calendar. And really what all I'm looking for is to see whether or not I recognize either business hours or holidays based on the calendar or calendars that I've created. So for that, I'm going to just do a reactive debug. And this often takes a painstakingly long time to load, but so I'm not sure how familiar you are with reactive debug, but it's probably one of the better features in UCCX. It's not usually this slow, but let's do it anyway. And I'll say dial 3001 to begin with. So it is 3001, so that should be true. So I should drop through to the calendar, the sales calendar, and the sales calendar does not have today as a holiday. So I would hope that that returns, a business hours exit. And we'll end that debug.
Hi.
Let's now do that again. This time 3004, which I believe is the other trigger. This should prove false, so I should go straight down to the support. And because the support folks aren't quite as keen as the sales guys, it defines today as a holiday. And so we exit that holiday exit point. You'll notice that there is also a failure. If it can't read anything in the calendar, you'll exit the failure. Those special days then would exit the rest exit point. So just in the interest of time, sort of trust me on that. You've got those 3 points. And one of the things I guess that I would say is, perhaps an issue with this compared with, other approaches is you don't get the opportunity without, say, further scripting, which maybe even takes away the benefits of calendar themselves. You don't get the opportunity to do anything special for, say, Easter or, some other, like Christmas holidays or something like that, and play different messages based on the holiday that it is. So I'm not sure if that's an enhancement that's in the wings, but that, to me, would be a great benefit because, again, it would provide just that extra little capabilities. Now, all that is well and good, but you might be saying, well, it's still requiring a significant piece of management, if you will. And I don't necessarily want people to have access to configuration of the system in order to manage something as, simple as holidays. So that's been answered, and that's been answered by using some advanced capability views or advanced capability statements for our supervisors. And I have a supervisor called student 00. And if you look here in this screen, I now have the ability for this particular supervisor to presumably manage calendars, manage outbound. Now we've not got any sort of outbound campaigns configured, so I'll leave that out at the moment, and manage certain applications that they are supervisors of. So this, again, is really providing some additional functionality for our supervisor to enable the advanced supervisor capabilities. Firstly, they need to be obviously assigned a team, and then we will just enable the queue, the calendar, or outbound if you're doing it, or the applications. So let's take a look at that. If we look at Cisco Finesse, I've logged in here as student 00, which is that supervisor, which has been assigned in the configuration there, advanced capabilities. So if I look here at these advanced capabilities, you can see I've got the opportunity to manage not only calendars, but also queues and applications. So let's take, for instance, the calendar management. And let's say it was an oversight, for argument's sake, not to give sales a holiday today. So this supervisor, who's a supervisor of these scripts and agents associated with this application, can now manage this calendar. I can come to the holidays, and I can name it Demo Day, and I can assign the 16th of November and save that, noting that I've got the opportunity to add still other days. Now, I guess what we could do is test that by doing yet another reactive script. I do apologise for how slow this is. I'm not quite sure why. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. While I'm just waiting for that to fire up, by the way, you've piqued my curiosity with that 14.x question. I'll certainly pursue that just out of interest. And again, almost sort of just sharing, I suppose. I'm delighted to see that they are moving into 14.x because I've been concerned, and this is just a personal observation, given all that's going on and sort of on the cloud-based contact center environments, what Cisco are going to do with UCCX, because it is a very neat, I think anyway, product. And it'd be very sad to see it go. But that's just my ramblings. So calendar test once again. Dial sales number.
Your call be completed. Please consult your. Sorry, we are currently experiencing system problems and are unable to process your call.
I think I got myself a little bit confused there, so just bear with me while we do this next one. So we've gone to sales. Hopefully, because of our supervisory action, we've now defined today as a holiday for sales. So that then, I guess, summarises calendar management and the supervisory advanced capabilities, if you will, for that calendar management. Noting also that I have the ability not only to manage calendars, but also queues. And here I might have the ability to add, agents or remove agents that are properly skilled to handle those sorts of services. Yes, you're absolutely correct. You've, Joseph, you've taken the wind right out of my sails, because that's the next thing I just want to talk about. How do we get these particular capabilities to the supervisor? Because it doesn't happen auto-magically, okay? And the way in which you define or provide these capabilities to the supervisor, as well as, for instance, you might notice chat and email. And if we went through this in more detail, there'd be some additional functionality in some of those other links as well. All of that is defined in the Finesse administration screen. And if we sign in here, and we look at the team resources, and I find for myself team, or Finesse 00, which is the team I'm working with, and you look at the desktop layout, out of the box, you find that quite a few of the gadgets which provide the drivers for what you see on that desktop are commented out. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with XML code, but it's a series of tags and headers and things of that nature. And if you look at the stuff in orange, as described here out of the box, you'll see a number of descriptions, if you will. Among them in here would be the chat and email. Following gadget is used for web chat and email. To include the functionality, remove the comments, leaving just the gadget. So out of the box, this sort of closing comment tag, I think is the term, would be over here, including this gadget as part of that comment. So there are chat and email gadgets that you would bring out, more web chat and email, that for the agent. Now, notice also that this desktop layout defines either the supervisor or the agent role. And when I log in as a user that is defined as a supervisor, then I'm really accessing these commands here as associated with the supervisor role. Now, some of the gadgets, are there, of course, but not all of them. And there are some web chat and email functionalities for the supervisor. There is some workforce management gadgets that you might bring out. And the one I want to bring out to you, or bring your attention to, following going past the outbound option, more web chat and email, all the way down near the bottom, is here. The following gadget provides supervisor with advanced capabilities. So again, that is commented out to begin with, and it's simply a matter of moving the closing tag, from the end of the gadget to the end of the comment. And what that gives you then is the ability, as we've seen, to not only see those advanced capabilities, but also to be able to exercise them. So that brings us close to the end of this webinar. Let me read this chat. Yeah, the question has been asked about instructions in enabling, additional functionality. Those instructions broadly, are in here. Now, do they tell you everything? Well, probably not. And I think, the Cisco documentation on the Finesse chapters probably give you more detail on that. But from my perspective, and this is just a sort of a personal approach to this sort of thing, and clearly you need a lab, to do this. You wouldn't be doing this in production. But, I've not gone through all of these, but gone through many of them. Open up that Supervisor desktop and one by one, release or uncomment out the gadgets and make sure I understand the difference that provides. I say not all of them because at this point I haven't gone through and done anything with outbound option yet. So that might be the next, one of the next things that we do as well. With 5 minutes left for more questions, let me just, while you're thinking up a question, let me just go back and I guess summarize for our, let me go back here. For our CCX administration, calendar management allows us to build out our calendars, which is really just, times of day, special days and holidays. Create that. We then need to create in our script an opportunity to access or exercise that calendar logic in our production scripts. Now, while I've just added it, as a sort of an exclusive an exclusive access here, I don't think it's too hard to imagine that you could add that to a production script. Once you add that logic to a production script, then almost automatically, if you come back to your application management, you would find that when the application calls up that script, because your variables, sales and support variables are created as parameters, then they then appear in this application, which is associated with this script. So that's where that glue comes from, if you will. And what that means, I guess, is that, we see then, just as a, summary, that these calendars are associated with those applications. So that's, I guess, probably useful from a review perspective and from that supervisory sort of management capability perspective. And the the other sort of new thing, I suppose, is the fact that we can create calendar, or have to create calendar type variables. Okay, bring that out, and then in the script, bring out our calendar step, and that calendar step is going to call up the calendars that you have created in your variables. I missed that out, I think, in the first pass. So two things to do in your scripting: create your calendar variables, then use your calendar step in the production script to define what you want to do on a holiday, on business hours, or special days. Okay, any questions, discussion? feedback. Again, thank you for your attendance. Hopefully you got a little bit of an insight into calendar management. As I say, keep an eye out for more of these in and around UCCX. There's a bunch of stuff there that relates to web chat and email that is covered in the class, but not to the extent that we could just focus in and hone in on a specific issue in a webinar such as this. I will bid you adieu and wish you good luck with your UCCXing.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.